Do you guys still get stress dreams?
Yeah.
The big ones are not ready for a test, you're still in college or whatever, or your teeth are just loose. You ever get that one? That's the worst.
I, I think,
No.
yeah, I know of that. I think I've had that maybe once or twice in my
That's a
life.
thing.
It is. The one that I get that I've actually talked to like sort of ex-athletes about is I'm like a high school football game or something, and I'm like, I need to get on the field. I'm running late, or I don't have my pads, or I don't have like
Yes.
a glove.
Yes.
It's almost like Field of Dreams, like you can't go back. In my dreams, my subconscious will not let me go play another baseball game or football game or whatever. And I've talked to other people like ex-athletes, and it's the same thing. Like, oh my God, I've had that too.
Where is this going, Oliver?
Well, something that I've had on a recurring basis every now and then, the golf stress dream. Have you guys had these?
Okay. No.
It's basically where you can't pull the trigger on hitting a drive.
It's like a Barkley-esque.
You're Patrick Cantlay.
I'm running late to a tournament. It's like the US Open or something. It's like a big tournament, and I'm on the first tee, and all of a sudden there's like a barn between me and the fairway, and I have to hit it through a window that's like the size of a softball. Every time I like feel like I'm ready, the window moves. Or there's a brick wall right behind you so you can't do your backswing. Are you guys telling me you don't have these? I find that hard to believe.
I mean, like, I haven't had the monster daydream yet, where there's a barn or some impediment.
This may be where the licensed psychotherapist in the room
Yeah.
says. That's very interesting.
No, I mean, it's pretty obvious
We
to
should
me,
talk
but-
about that.
It's coming now that you've planted the seed. I'm sure, something me and Preston are both going to have that dream now, so thanks.
All right, well, there you go.
We need to start training your subconscious into like acing par fours. I don't know what's going on over here. We're gonna have a longer talk offline, I think.
Let's do that. All right, welcome to Weekday Golf.
Welcome to Weekday Golf. My name is Preston.
I am Oliver.
And I am Scott.
Yeah, and we're joined today by Scott.
Scott.
And if you're listening and not watching, we're doing air quotes when we say Scott.
Scott.
Oliver, why is Scott here with us?
Well, Scott is behind the hilarious and informative Country Club Confidential. Heard you on the Great Subpar podcast and loved hearing the stories that you guys were telling there. And so we thought it would be great to bring you here to this audience.
Indeed. And so maybe Scott, because that's not your real name. Give us a little background of, like, to the extent that you can, of who you are other than your actual identity, and how and when you started this effort.
So about just almost 2 years ago in September was when this officially launched to 200 or so of my closest friends. And how it started was a friend of mine who's in the golf space had wanted to start some sort of an email newsletter, and he approached me and knew I had a bit of a writing background, and had said that he wanted to do an email newsletter of, with golf stories is how he presented it. And I didn't initially get what he meant. I was thinking golf stories like, hey, I was on the fourth hole and I was in a trap and I had this tough lie. It's like, you're just rolling your eyes and can't wait for that story to be over. So he didn't mean encore stories, of course. Once I understood that, the Clubhouse stories, the country club life and that, I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So, I took a little time to think about it, and along the way got I guess sort of the light bulb moment was just the title, Country Club Confidential. And then right away, in my head at least, seeing the kind of old gossip magazine, like the original National Enquirer was called Confidential Magazine. It was like a Hollywood gossip rag in the 50s. And then the movie, of course, LA Confidential. In my voice, when I write our stories, I always kind of hear that like Danny DeVito in the opening sequence of that movie, Dear Readers.
Yeah.
That's sort of where it came from. And we're sort of building a bit of a content library here of stories, and there's a lot of ways this could go in the future. But for now, it's just been a weekly story. One a week was, I've realized nearly 2 years later, as a side project, quite ambitious. We didn't know if there'd be enough stories. We didn't know if we'd go. I think we made sure we had 8 or 10 good ones in the chamber before we launched. And then it's been a little bit of a mad scramble sometimes to get the stories. And so anyways, that's a long-winded way of saying that it was something that sort of was brought to me, and then collectively we sort of saw this idea and then realized no one else was really doing it. All these clubs have all these great stories, and they reside within the walls of that club, and they're such good stories that they deserve to be told. And it's not that the club doesn't want to have that story told, but they certainly don't want their name on it or the individuals involved, and that's where we change names to protect the guilty, is what we like to say. So
there you go. And so backing up just a little, I should have asked this first. Country Club Confidential tells the stories that go on, gossipy type of rumor stories that happen at every club. Everybody's heard a story like the ones that you tell, and you give voice to them for the world to enjoy.
I think the goal of it has always been, we're not coming at it from the approach of a stuffy country club, right? We certainly know people that are members of those types of clubs that have their own stories. But to your point, yes, the stories are relatable in the sense that if you're a member of a club, you know the crazy stuff that happens at your club. And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. And then you start hearing from these other clubs like, oh, at least we didn't have that happen or whatever. And if you're not a member of a club or never set foot on a private club, you wonder what happens behind those gates. Well, you know what? We're here to tell you. And we like to say we're sort of punching up in the sense that we're not defending the behavior of people at these clubs. I mean, it's oftentimes the upper class or the 1%ers in some cases, right? You put them, mix them up together, add wives and kids, and then add the staff and everything that goes on behind the scenes there. You're going to get stories. And so nearly 2 years later, we found that there's no shortage, and there probably never will be. There's some that are similar, in the 2 years we've had a few. We've done a couple, like one was a part 2 because it was just a recurring bandits in the bushes. We did part 2 a year later because there was another story of basically an inside job where there's a place to hide where members that were known to either be carrying large amounts of cash that they were gambling or fancy watches or things that they were known to take off and put in their bag. And then they go to some blind hole where they set their bags down and, out of the bushes come the bandits, take off with the stuff. You don't realize until a few holes later that you've been robbed. And, so we've heard more than one story about that. There's actually another one we need to do that involved an armed robbery in a similar case. Just to give the brief viewer version, it was a desert course and same deal. It was known that there was a big money game and they knew exactly roughly when they teed off what time they'd be at a certain hole, and they hopped the fence and came over with guns. And they were one of those games where you're paying out, like every hole. Like, I need my $500 right now.
Weekday Golf is sponsored by Venmo, PayPal,
Yeah, right.
Apple Cash.
Much better than hard cash.
These do not sound like typical stories at every club, I gotta say. But
no,
but
and that's
they
the
are.
thing. You have outliers, yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, that's the most recurring one is like theft of property in a golf bag. Actually, if I was to think about it, if there's one thing I've learned in the last 2 years, it's don't put anything of value in your golf bag.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, this would explain why our friend put his wedding ring on a carabiner outside of his golf bag. May as well make it easy to find.
Yeah, right. Just here it is, and if you want her, you can have her.
So I love these stories, Scott. I was the other day just kind of doom scrolling through your site, which is ccconfidential.vip, and I'd love to hear about 1991 Asterisk, which was a club championship final between, I think, a popular guy who had trouble getting to the golf course, and he was playing a lawyer.
Yes. So
he missed the first few holes.
He did. And so in that story, that was told to me by a member at the club I'm a member at who used to live on the East Coast, and it's a very good player, and he had car trouble. And so most people, if you got word, and this was pre, cell phone, I think he had to pull over, find a payphone, make a call, change a tire, and so he's running late. The individual he was playing refused to wait. So he went and played as fast as he could. Single hole, 1 hole, 2 holes. Didn't matter what he shot. He was just trying to, because I think it was match play. So he's winning 1, 2, 3, 4 holes.
So he got hot, and something happened on the 18th hole where someone in the gallery was like, just an easy 8-iron.
Yes, that's right.
So I think he was about to win.
He was. Right? And then because the other guy had hit a club, so not only is he a jerk and ran out and tried to win the wrong way by just winning holes against air, then when the guy finally gets there and he hops in, he starts roaring back, comes all the way back, and then gets to the point where the whole club, of course, is rooting for this guy because they know what happened. Yeah. And they can't stand the other guy. And he's such a stickler for the rules and win at any cost kind of guy that I believe someone in the gallery had said what club the other guy used. So he hit a great shot in with the club, and then the other guy said, you have to take a penalty because you were aware of what club, I think it was a club I used, or you got advice from someone else, whatever that rule is. Yeah. That's what it was, an advice rule. And this guy claimed that. And I think he's just such a pain in the ass that the club just, didn't want to deal with him, and, him probably suing him over something crazy. So and this guy, again, really gracious guy, was just fine, if it means that much to you, if you want to win it that way. And again, that's the asterisk.
So you've got the club championship plaques or the nameplates, right? Mm-hmm. And people literally
heat it out
and put an asterisk there because they were awesome. Not having it.
That was it.
I feel like I feel like we all know that guy. Do we not?
You know, every club I don't
Yeah.
I don't know of a club that doesn't have that guy to some degree. Now that may be a little extreme, but I mean, I could name you 3 guys off the top of my head that I won't.
Well,
but,
I mean, I think that's why your venture here is so it's so relatable, right? Because you're sort of putting voice and narrative to like all of these different golf archetypes, like all these different club archetypes. Like everybody knows that guy. Like I can think of at least 2 or 3 of the guys that would potentially do something like that. And so the appeal is nearly universal, I would imagine, among clubs, right?
yeah, when I tell people what we're doing, or if I'm able to explain to someone just even a little bit, they're like, oh, I love it. And again, I mean, our subscription base, we have some data on click-through rates and things like that. And we have a very consistent high open rate and high engagement rate. So we like that, at least with our audience that it is now, they're with us once a week for whatever the 5 minutes it takes to read the story. And, if they want to click through and comment, that we always love that. It's been a wider audience, I think, than we even thought, right? Meaning, like, there's one person at a desert club in membership, found out about us and was talking to us about some things. And then he told us there's a 65-year-old woman in HR at his club who's like, she's your biggest fan. And I'm like, really? Yeah. She's like, she like comes running down the hallway. Did you see it? Did you see the email? Like when it comes through, did you read the story yet? And he's like, what? No, I just got it 5 minutes ago. So I didn't have that as like who would be. Now, maybe because if you're in HR at a club, you see all these stories. So that could be.
I was going to say, like, a staff member who gets to kind of dig on all this kind of dirt is maybe, I'm not surprised, but maybe I wouldn't have guessed that they would be one of your biggest fans.
GMs and head pros and stuff. Yeah, I'm still overdue. I've been trying to set up something with the head pro at the club I'm at, and he's got a bunch of other head pros in the area. And he's like, we're just going to sit down and, light some cigars and have some cocktails, and you just hit record on your phone, and you'll have a couple months
awesome.
right there. I said, you know what? All right, I'm game for that. So, and they love it, right? So it's just really cool to have that type of a response, because you don't know when you start it. You're like, I think this is funny and interesting, but you just don't know, who else will, but to have it, get to where it's gotten. And then, hopefully where we're headed, it'll be just, more awareness and things like this with my fake mustache and hat and sunglasses. And because,
wait,
I
that's
guess
fake?
we can talk about that. Yeah, it's not, I wish it wasn't. If I could grow this, man.
The soul patch is real, but the mustache is fake.
Yeah, the soul patch is 100% real.
Very well
As
manicured.
you guys know, I got this from my kid in college right before the podcast, because I didn't have any other plan to disguise myself. So here we are.
I mean, it's incredible. Well done. So I think Preston and I were trading texts about, I want to say it's a recent one called Badfellas.
Yes. That's a perfect example of like, it's a Tuesday. I don't have a story for sure. And you mentioned archetypes. We've also, when we just don't have a story for a week, we've done like types of caddies, worst guests, types of members, things like that. So I was getting ready to maybe do another one of those. And I'm playing golf on a Tuesday with a friend of mine who's got like his boss's boss from out of town, right? And, he's like, can you take me to your club? And so we got for a round. He's telling him a little bit about Country Club Confidential. He's like, that's cool. And then as it often goes, people are like, if I just go to you and go, do you have a story? You'll probably go, no, not, but if I tell you 2 or 3 stories, it'll trigger something. And then you'll be like, oh, that reminds me of this or that, right? So that sort of happened here, because he's like, oh, and then he's like, well, actually, I got one for you. And so this guy, it's a club. He's from out of town, as I mentioned. So it's not Southern California, but a known mob city that should open up about 3 or 4 cities in your mind where this could have been. So in the 90s, they had their clubhouse, and they, the carpet was worn. It was dated looking, probably some, who knows, 60s, 70s, whatever. So they wanted to redo it. So the kind of power center of the club is like, let's get this done. We're on the board, whatever. So the club rules were they had to go to a vote. So they put up for a vote, and the assessment, was going to be whatever it was going to be. And the membership voted it down. So being from a town like this, there was a plan B, and that was to burn the clubhouse down and have the insurance pay for a new one. Thus the title, if you remember the Goodfellas, when it's all squeezed out, you light a match, right? So
that seems like a nuclear option, plan B right there.
Well, I guess in certain parts of the country, in certain cultures, that's what, if you can't win it on you try democracy, and when that doesn't work, you go to your own.
Burn the place down.
Just burn it down. So that's what they did. So that's like a interesting story if that's where it ends. But they do the full investigation, and apparently these guys were good at this because they came in and did the full arson investigation and it was deemed to be an accident. So they're like, okay, pay the insurance claim. And, what they didn't know and what everyone this many years later in statute of limitations, I guess, is that if the insurance company had hired a better or at least more golf knowledgeable arson investigator, he would have realized that there was 72 members that had brought their golf bags home from the bag room the night before the fire. And so if they had done just one little audit of that or, the registration or so yeah, and then the lesson on that one, so of course other members were not in the know. It's not a 72 member club, so our little lesson that we like to add at the end of the story is just make sure you're always close to the power center of the club, so if you need to take your clubs home, one night you get the phone call and don't have your grandpa's putter burned down or whatever, some sentimental. And some people you might want to leave. We don't know. There might have been more than 72 people who got the call, and some of them just wanted a new set and figured, we'll have the insurance pay for it, which interestingly led to the next story. So I didn't have a story. And then along the way, we get an email from a reader who's like, I've got a story for you. So he calls, and like another mob related one that was a Mean Green story where there was an actual hit on a guy at a golf course and another mob town. And it was the same city. That story came from a reader that read Badfellas and triggered the idea and said, oh, I got one for you. And his dad was in the group behind the guy that was a guy comes out of the forest and like tries to, and the hit was put on by a guy in his foursome. So these 4 known mob guys, and then one guy decides to, like, on this one hole where it's near a road, pay his like ex-son-in-law who's like a cab driver to run out of the woods and shoot this guy. And then he botches it. So the guy lives. So then the guy that put the hit on wasn't sanctioned by the upper crust. So he turns up in the trunk of a Cadillac a couple of months later with his throat slit. So be careful out there. Some of these clubs, you never know.
One story begets another.
Yes.
If you're okay with this, I would like to tee up a story of Preston's that I'm guessing there isn't a similar one in the archives.
I'm all for it because we can see how the sausage is made. I'll hear this story, right. And then if we find it in the newsletter, then you can see how much creative license we take. So let's hear it.
At the risk of blowing my anonymity, I run these golf trips down to my club in Arizona, and I have these buddies from Chicago who have been down there multiple times, and I don't know, maybe their 3rd, 4th visit or something like that, they decided that they wanted to do something thoughtful and bring me a gift. And so we show up for golf on day 1, and I see something sitting at the tee. And as I get closer, I realize it's a painting. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. Why is there a painting here? And as I get even closer, I realize it's a painting of me. And so I'm like, oh my God, they got a painting of me. Like, what am I going to do with this painting? And so they're all kind of like, do you like it? You think it's great? You love it? I'm like, yeah, it's great. I can't wait to have a painting of myself in my house. It's fantastic. And so this goes on all day, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this painting? Like, I don't want a painting of myself.
Can I just describe the painting real quick?
Please do.
Preston is holding a trophy, which is, I think, the cup that this group plays for, Ryder Cup style.
Yep.
And he's kind of caressing it.
I'm kissing it. I'm kissing the painting.
Yeah, it's kissing it. It's like
I'm kissing the trophy.
Or are you?
I don't know. We're just a sort of a PG-13 kind of kiss on the old trophy there.
Yeah, but a look of accomplishment, relief, satisfaction, pleasure.
Yeah.
One of those.
Those were all the feelings that I was having when I actually kissed the actual trophy. Somebody took a picture of this moment, took it to the artist who then produced this painting. So I am like aghast and slightly appreciative, but like shocked a little too. I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? So, we have this painting around the golf course all day, and I'm a kind of a humble dude. I'm not the guy that's like, yay, a painting of me. So it's a little embarrassing. I got this painting, and like now everybody's kind of seeing this painting, and like everybody around the club is seeing the painting, and it's in the clubhouse. I'm like, okay, great, I got a painting. So all day they kept giggling. I'm like, what's going on here? This is a little weird. And so, at the end of the day, we get back to the house, and they kept telling me that there's like a video that goes along with the painting. And I'm like, oh, these guys, this is like too much. They got me this painting, and now I don't know what they've done. Have they put together like a montage of all the photos from our golf trips? Like, this is too much. I don't want all this attention. I just want everybody to have a good time. And I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. So we're sitting in the living room of our house down there, and they start to introduce this video. And, this one guy, Pete, he's like, we just really wanted to like get something nice for you. I mean, like Preston, you like have us down here. You're such a generous host. Like, we wanted to get you something special. And like, what do you get the guy that's got everything? And I'm like, oh God, where's this going? And they're like, so we had this painting made, and like before we show you the video, we just want you to know that we really respect you. And I'm like, oh God, what's about to happen? And it's kind of hard to describe what happens next without showing the actual video. But the punchline is, it is a video of a man named Tim Patch, whose stage name is Picasso. And he is the world's foremost artist who uses his junk as a paintbrush.
Okay. Oh, God.
So I have a painting of myself, a portrait that was painted by another man with using only one brush, one very special brush.
Oh my God.
And so this is 8 years ago. And so now I get to play the joke. And so now it's like, oh, have you ever seen my portrait? And then like people are like, oh no, you got a portrait. Why are you telling me this? And I'm like, well, it's a very special portrait. And would you like to see how it was made? And so one of my favorite things to do now is to run through the kind of slideshow of the painting in all of its various locations around the golf course that day, and describe all of these things, and then allow them to view the video for themselves.
Well, can I just add that for 95% of the story, you're just kind of nodding along saying, oh, that's really nice. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
And then the last 5 minutes hits you like a bolt of lightning. So first of all, just to add a little unnecessary color to this, the artist,
no pun intended,
he's an Australian guy. He's like 70 years old.
Yeah.
Which
and he's
I don't know why
shape.
I find that so notable.
He's because
it takes a
shape.
lifetime to learn this skill.
He's a fit man. There's like didgeridoo sound effects going on while this painting is being made. A lot of theatricality to it. And watching the reaction shots, many of which have been recorded for posterity, that is almost even better than watching the thing itself. We've had friends cracking up immediately. We've had friends like pushing it away almost violently, like, I can't watch this. But this story has echoed through our golf circles, and it's always a delight when we come across someone who's never heard it.
That's hilarious. And so to commission work from this individual, what did it run him? And did his rate go up after this story? And no revenge? It wasn't like, I would just think that the annual thing would be the next year's winner.
Here's the crazy thing. This thing apparently cost $300. Like,
A
what?
steal.
Yeah. With the video. You get a produced
With the
video to
video.
come with it.
With-
yeah. I mean,
With the video.
Which somehow existed on YouTube, by the way.
oh,
It still does. It still does. I'm trying to pull it up right now so I can like just,
I'm not sure we're going to link to it in the show notes, but
yeah.
it's quite a spectacle.
that is hilarious. I hope this is his primary source of income. I mean, a man with such skill, he should be.
The video has to be seen to be believed. I'll just leave it at that. There's things going on that you're just like, what?
Oh, I got it. I
I don't know if I can watch this again.
A second there.
Alrighty, this is crazy. This is
Exactly.
hilarious. I mean, that's like Richard Simmons of Australia or something. It's just,
Oh, all right. Get ready. Here it comes.
yeah, I hear it.
G'day, Preston, and welcome from Australia.
How is this on YouTube? Oh my God. That didn't need that. Absolutely don't need that.
I can't do the rest.
The worst part's about to happen.
Oh my God. No. Why? Oh God.
There you go.
Oh my God. How is that? How is that?
I'm sorry to have to do that to you, man. We don't, but now you know. You'll never forget. You didn't know this was, this kind of podcast.
That is a passion project for sure. I mean, because to do that, oh my God, that is crazy. That guy exists.
$300.
That
$300.
That guy exists in the real world.
You may want to order yourself, well, not yourself,
No.
a Picasso for a friend.
That is
But if you do, I highly recommend that you video the unveiling of the video. Like
Yeah.
he pointed at the audience because that's the best part.
Oh my God, that is crazy.
I like though, Scott, how your head immediately went to, okay, what happened next? What's the revenge? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you've heard so many stories that kind of have this natural follow on. Like, what are some of your favorite themes, I guess?
Gosh, there's so many, just all of the kind of worst of human behavior, I think, right? Like, is what, there's, so I wouldn't say there's a central theme other than that whether it's, like the tennis pro with all the wives, and or that there's a little bit of that. There's infidelity, of course, and we're very PG-13 about that. There's alcohol infused bad behavior. There is revenge or perception or actual slights that are then, if it's interesting enough, it'll be a story for us. Cheating, stealing. There's theft. There's a lot of theft, I think, because you have high net worth environment, so there's plenty of opportunity to steal, or things like pranks, right? Like, so, I mean, one of them, you mentioned golf trips. One of the ones that we did, gosh, I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but it was a guy, really wealthy guy, extra millions kind of guy. And so they went somewhere that was a golf destination town. And as happens in those types of places, you'll get some sort of hustlers hanging around the bars. So they're talking business or whatever and having drinks. And there was some group that guys had heard him and started chatting with him, and we got this investment or whatever, trying to pitch him on some sort of investments. And this guy was known to get the richest of the group, known to get blackout drunk, and then like you think he's just gonna pass out, and then he'll just like get one of these and then go shots, right? And now he's just like operating and not gonna remember anything. These guys know that about him. So then he finally finishes and passes out, and the last thing he remembered was talking to these guys with these investments. So they went so far as to contact his secretary, get some documents, and like forge them with his own signature, saying that he made this investment with these guys. And the next morning, like, God, man, I can't believe you put such a big investment. He's like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, that business those guys are pitching. You made a commitment to them, and like $2 million just is a lot, to invest, especially in the business. And like, I was like, what? And like, ice sculpting. You invested in an ice sculpting business. This guy was pitching. We're all like, nah, I don't, The guy's like, what? No, that doesn't sound like me. And then they start producing documents, and now he's kind of worried. So for the whole golf trip, they keep this ruse going and convince him that he invested $2 million in an ice sculpting business that these guys were, that no one even pitched. So until the very end, they finally let him off the hook and tell him they were like, with him, of course, right? I think in this story too, it was that he had been generous enough to let them fly in his private jet, and that's when they tell him on the flight back, like, oh, by the way, we were just screwing with you. It's like, you guys are definitely flying commercial next time we do one of these. Like, so they bought themselves a ticket, and they paid for the prank, I think, on the next golf trip.
That's hilarious.
I think we'll be able to keep going, into the foreseeable future. And then it's, there's some interesting things that are arising. One of the hopes was that there might be interest in taking these stories in different places, or like one of the stories that we did, the cocaine caddy story, we actually went so far as to even write like a pilot for that, got out to a few people, and we'll see, like, that would be, I think, a very interesting, fun story. So we have some ideas around that. I mean, there's a little bit of background that I have in writing that it's not my day job per se, but it'd be fun to rekindle that with some of these other ideas. Or we do the magazine at some point. I think that as we get more and more stories, like a very nice, like, high-end, there you go, love it.
And here it is. There
it
is.
Magazine.
This thing's huge.
It's huge. It's like a tabloid, 17 by 11. It's like the old Variety magazine. At some point too, like a big, like a coffee table book or something of these stories. Like, it would be a great thing to have, and just taking our best stories and putting them in one, piece of content. Like, that would be pretty cool in the future.
There's room for good writing for sure. I mean, right now, there's like so much golf media out there, and you're seeing all these shows come out of nowhere. And Preston and I had a chat about some of our favorite golf books and movies the other day, and the thing that always gets me is when the golf specific part, whether it's like someone's swing or the way they talk about something about golf, is just off a little bit. It's like you need someone who knows how to speak that language. 100%. That will resonate big time with actual golfers,
It's like, I mean, I played, baseball growing up and through college, and the baseball movies like Bull Durham is about as authentic, as it gets, but it's because Ron Shelton played minor league baseball, the writer-director, like then there's other movies where you watch them for baseball where you're just like, who in the hell, like, they don't know the game at all, right? And you're just like, how did no one even think to check, like you said, whether it's the language, it's usually little things that most people wouldn't pick up on, but you're right that if there isn't that level, I can't think of there just haven't been a lot of golf movies, obviously. I mean, there's obviously the slapsticky, like Happy Gilmore stuff, but Tin Cup would be one where it's like, all right, that was kind of, again, Ron Shelton is the common thread there, but
I'm still waiting for that show that nails it.
You're kind of introducing some interesting dynamics in terms of editorial decision making. Like other people are going to have to make decisions on what might work for TV or movie, this kind of stuff. How do you, just to try to pull back the curtain a little bit, how do you decide what should and should not get published?
Well, the quality of the story is 100% what drives it. If it's a great story. Now, we've somewhat jokingly referred to Country Club Confidential After Dark needs to exist, because we certainly get a handful of stories that are not publishable to our current audience. And if people have the option to read some of the stories, there are absolutely some great stories, especially from the 80s and 90s, before our camera phones, of bad behavior, but still good stories that involve vices, we'll say, that people, and excess. Vices and excess, I think, would be the two common things there. How do we decide what we don't run? I mean, I'll hear some stories and it's a good story told. And that's happened sometimes, where it's a really hilarious story that someone tells, but it just doesn't work in writing. Like one guy I remember early days was telling me a story about they were at this course and a guy hit this low line drive and it hit, like, some deer came out, and the way the deer responded to the ball hitting him, and he's like, so yeah, you could do that in your newsletter. And I'm just like, that, no, what, a guy hit a deer, like, no, that's not going to work. And a lot of people aren't writers or even readers. Actually, that's a bit of a problem in this day and age. Another thing that's coming soon is us doing a little podcast, more of a behind the scenes about the stories, us just telling, and as we start to embark on other things. So be on the lookout for that.
It's not a bad medium for what you're doing.
It's not, sure. And we'll do audio only, obviously at first, and whatever. Just it's if you're in your car listening, or
the water's warm, buddy.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, serious.
Jump on in.
So obviously, people bring these stories to you, and clearly, keeping them anonymous is your stock in trade, right? And that's how you're going to get these stories. But has anybody ever recognized, like, the subject of one of your stories?
Well, I think so. I mentioned earlier we're in Southern California. So the Southern California Golf Association did a story about us. It was funny because they specifically said, they obviously oversee all the different clubs. So, like, we love every week, we try to guess which club it is. So it's like, so it's really
right.
more that. And then it's funny because when it's been a semi-local story, I'll have people go, oh, was that at, like, fill in the blank club? And I'm like, and I'll tell, like, if it's you and me or we're not on a pub, I'll tell you what club. It doesn't really matter. But obviously to an audience, we don't do that. But rarely has someone come and said, oh, is it this story or this club? And they're absolutely right. So, which is funny about it, because their assumptions of what had happened, it's the fact they're so confident it could have been that club is telling about clubs in general. And it's funny, I even just had another story that two completely separate people that were both at this hotel room Friday of a member guest tournament. I forgot that I'd been told this story. Different club, different set. I didn't even know these guys knew each other, and then they're telling me the exact same story. Which was kind of funny, right? To hear it like 6 months later from a completely different source. So, there's some of the stories are so strong or so interesting that they just make the rounds, right? And we, of course, if this story is a little thin, I wouldn't even say thin, if this story just doesn't have a resolution, we'll add that, right? Because, I mean, it's still a story. So sometimes it's a great setup and there's no third act. So we'll just, okay, well, how would this have resolved itself? Good example of that actually is one that we had that was submitted by a reader after the Subpar podcast. And this is about 2 months before the Phil Mickelson story broke, right? And a lot of people made their assumptions, and probably correctly so. But as we were told, it's a known PGA professional in the San Diego area. The caddy had told them, like, we played this caddy, you have any good stories? Like, I got one for you. And this wasn't at the Farms in Rancho Santa Fe. This was at a different club. And so this was a caddy where the caddy said, yeah, I'd get paid by this guy to carry his phone around because his wife had a tracker on him. So he'd come, give me his phone, I'd do the loop and get a few $100, come back and pick up his phone. And so that's the story that we had. And of course, this all comes out later, that same story about members taking his phone. So he pulled it at different courses, which was not reported, but clearly he did, because then this was at a different country club, not the one he was a member of. And so he was given a caddy in that instance. So we didn't have a third act for the story. So it's like, all right, well, you can't just say, oh, this happened and then it's over. So we're like, we just had the morality play where the caddy then one day he's carrying his phone and then sees the wife pulling up. And so the caddy's like, she's here, but how do I get a hold of this guy? Because I have his phone. So he had a burner number that this, so he's like, hey, you got to get her. Your wife's here because I got 2 holes to play and she's pulling in. So then he shows up at the last minute, So we just added that to add a little drama because that's sort of felt like the right thing to do for that story, So
Yeah.
is that how it all went down? No, but again, if I just wrote it the other way, it wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah.
We will take some creative license the way that any good story. If you make a movie or TV show and it's based on a true story, all of our stuff is at the very least based on. Some is just exactly as it happened because you couldn't make it up anyways, and others are we'll embellish where necessary for the sake of the story. So
yeah. So Scott, you've been doing this for 2 years now. What do you love the most about it?
I would say even though I probably complain about it, the process of I love getting the stories. I guess that's my favorite part, talking to people and getting the stories. And I do enjoy sitting down writing them, but again, it's having that ticking clock is necessary really to get anything done. So it is good that I have that. But talking to people, getting the stories, being surprised that there's 2 years worth of stories, and now 2 years in, I feel pretty confident there's another 2 years plus out in front of me. Where I didn't know that after. I didn't know if after 10 weeks we'd be like, well, that's it, shut it down, right? And so here we are. So that's the thing I enjoy the most is probably just talking to people and procuring the stories and hearing from people, being surprised by what else is out there.
Stories make the golf world go round. We retell the same stories a million times. They're still funny.
Yep. Absolutely.
So speaking of that, how can people find you? I think Oliver mentioned your website earlier, but why don't you give us everything that the listeners need to know to become fans of Country Club Confidential?
Well, easiest thing for you if you're driving and can't write it down is just Google Country Club Confidential. We should come up. And the website is ccconfidential.vip. You can subscribe for free to the newsletter, which is every Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific. Should be showing up in your inbox with a new story every week. That's the product for now. And as discussed, there's other potential things that will come out of that and more to come. But if you're interested in that, then that's what we got for you.
Awesome.
Love it.
All right. So, Scott, this has been great. We end our shows by asking our guests the same question, which is essentially what they love most about the game. We call it the soul of golf to them. So, Country Club Confidential, Scott, if that is your real name, what does the soul of golf mean to you?
I think it's the camaraderie and just getting outside. I think COVID, if nothing else, showed us that, is just people's itch and will to get outside. The growth of golf because of COVID, I think, speaks to that. And it's good for more people to find that, just to get outside and be with friends and to compete in something that's impossible to master. But, there's days when you have a few of those shots that you're like, oh, maybe I could, maybe it could all come together this one day. And that's hope, right? That's just the optimism of anyone that that you can. I think it's just that. I think it represents so much of what life is. You're trying to put this ball into a little tiny hole hundreds of yards away, right? And some people are really good at it and some people are terrible at it, but it doesn't matter as long as you're just out there having a good time with it and you play fast as well. That's the other part. Don't hold everyone up.
Love the plug for fast play. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard that earlier. So
and if it leads to an amazing story, even better.
Amen.
All the better. Well, thanks, buddy. Thanks for your time, man. We look forward to hosting you for golf one of these days when you're up in the Bay Area.
Love it. I would love that. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
The Thursday emails hitting the inbox are always a pleasure to look forward to. Yeah. So keep it up. Keep up the great work.
You got it. Will do.
Thanks as always for listening. Next week on Weekday Golf, we intended to rank our favorite golf books. Then I realized that I haven't actually read most of the golf books on my shelf.
So we ended up talking about the stories from golf books and movies that we love, from The Match and Every Shot Counts
to Caddyshack and Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. These stories have stuck with us years later and changed the way we think about the game.
If you've ever had someone tell you, you've got to read this, or Judge Smails was an overrated character, which is absolutely incorrect, by the way, this one's for you.
And if you think Judge Smails was an overrated character, please find another podcast to listen to.
Completely erroneous.
Weekday Golf is produced by Armageddon Partners, LLC. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter/X. Let us know what you want to hear about at weekdaygolfpodcast@gmail.com.